Well, never say never, right? We hear that, and it's a fairly uh, common advice that we get. But how often do we actually say never? I think it's kind of one of the things that we just generally say. Like, for instance, well, I'll never have the Porsche, or I guess I'll never have that great relationship, or maybe I'll never be able to run a mile. All of these things that we say never to, and of course the advice is to don't do that anymore. Well, why not? I mean, why wouldn't we want to say never? Well, there are a couple of good reasons. One is when it's something that we would actually have as a benefit, as a positive thing in our life, we say never, what we're doing is we're telling the universe not to send it our way. We're pushing it away. We're saying that exists, but not for me. I can't have it. And so, of course, we don't want to be limiting like that in what we see as our potential good. So that's a good reason to say never. Now, sometimes I think we say never in a different way, and this one, um, sometimes when we say never, it actually does come true for us. And what I'm thinking of is like when I stand there and say, well, I would never throw that out of the car window and just litter like that. Or I would never speak to someone like that. Now, I don't know if you've had the experience that I've had, but often when I say never that way, a while later, I turn around and find myself doing the very thing I said I would never do. Well, isn't that curious? Isn't it curious that the thing that we might want, we say never about, we're actually pushing it away. And the thing that we say, oh, never, never, because we don't want, it actually can happen to us. What is the difference? I mean, doesn't the universe always give us what we want? Well, the answer to that is yes, it does. So, how can these two be different? When I was pondering that, because I've really learned not to say, oh, I would never, because it happens to me. Um, when I was pondering that, I realized that it's probably an energy difference. That when I say, um, oh, I'll never have that million in the bank or 10 million in the bank, whatever. Or when I'm saying that, what I'm doing is I'm coming from this energy of wanting, of not having, of knowing that it's not present, of it's a knowing that it's not present, and we're actually pushing it away. So so it's an energetic thing that way. And then when I say never the other way, like, oh, I would never, that's judgment. Do you hear it? And who said, judge not, lest ye be judged? I mean, the very thing I'm judging another person for is something that I do, that it's within me. It's within me to do that. I think that energy is an energy of it's more intense. It's like the energy intensely attaches itself to that thing. And the universe says, oh, you want to be attached to that energetically? Okay, here it is. Now, I think the soul also probably has something to do with that. The soul probably says, I'd like you to recognize that you're part of the human condition here and that you're all one. You're all one. That there's not you up here and somebody else down here. And so in that awareness, um, since you've judged this, we're going to let you experience it so you can have more compassion for your fellow person. So, perhaps that's why it happens that way. But it's a different energy. So, never say never. We don't want to say never. It just, in my experience, it's not the thing that I want to do for either reason, either pushing things away that I would like or pulling things toward me that I would not like. Don't want to say never. But if we're not going to do that, then what do we do with those things that we would like to change? Like, for instance, what if I would like more money in my bank account? What if I would like my relationship to be more loving? That involves a change. It involves something that's different than what's happening now. I did a little bit of research on changing habits, creating new habits, because this is really what we're talking about. And I've heard several times, oh, it just takes 21 days to change a habit. And actually, there was a study that was done by Philippa Lawley, a health psychology researcher at University College London, who said, no, it's not 21 days. That there's a range of how long it takes to new habit, but the average is 66 days, which is 2 months. The range was from 18 days to 254 days, which basically is about 2.5 weeks to over 8 months. Oh, Lordy. So you're telling me it may take me 8 months to change a behavior? Oh, that might seem impossible. But they did say, well, you could skip a day or two and not have to start the whole thing over. So at least there's that going for us, right? And also it's helpful if you look at it in terms of it's a process. That this is not a test. It's not a there's no need to judge yourself. It's just a process that you're going through to make this change. So now there are things that are involved in whether making a change, creating a new habit, getting rid of an old habit, whether that is easy or more difficult. And Dr. Brian King, a neuroscientist and psychologist, says this, that one thing that determines how easy it is something called the reward value of the behavior you want to start. The reward value. If it has high reward value, it's easier to develop the habit. Now, he gives the example of if you wanted to take up a crack habit, it probably wouldn't take you 66 days, okay? Very high reward value, but I don't think most of us want to do that, okay? On the other hand, if you want to pick up a going to the gym habit, reward value, I don't know. It's going to probably at least take that, average of 66 days, right? Because the brain doesn't sense that reward value as quickly. Now, another part of this reward that makes it either easier or more difficult to make a change is the reward value of what you're giving up. See, we've developed all these habits and they already have a reward value with us. So if what we're trying to change has a higher reward value than what we're trying to, if what we're trying to leave behind has a higher reward value than what we're trying to change into, it's going to make it more difficult to make that change. So there's that. And then another factor in changing a habit is how complicated is it? If it's more complicated, it's more difficult. And of course, if it's easy, like for instance, sitting on the sofa, on the couch, that's pretty easy. But getting up, getting your car keys, getting dressed, getting in the car, driving to the gym, Uh, Putting on your workout clothes, working out, that's pretty complicated. You got a lot of steps there to do. Easy versus complicated. So the complicated thing makes it more difficult. So, okay, so we have all these things here. It's like, okay, well, maybe making this change that I want to make is not as easy as I thought it would be. But we're in new thought. And in new thought, we have something going for us because we have conscious awareness and we're aware of consciousness. Reverend Michael Beckwith says this: when there's a deliberate intentionality that becomes your conscious awareness, you begin to wake up and notice that the part of your mind that is anxious and caught up in the lies of lack, scarcity, and not enoughness is not the real you, capital R, capital Y. And that which is not real begins to heal. It begins to be disintegrated and dissolved. It begins to have no power or influence. It begins to no longer make your decisions. It no longer invades your conversations or actions. You may notice it, but it doesn't have an avenue of expression. As you hang on in there with the real, capital R, harmony and abundance become more real to you, and a dynamic sense of peace, no matter what, comes into your life. It's that deliberate intentionality. Once we set it, we know that the universe is for us and that the universe is going to be providing us clues, cues, opportunities, all manner of things for us to become different, to change. So, I have some tools to help us out this morning. And you know, I like acronyms, and I brought one this morning. The acronym is CLAP, C-L-A-P, like clap. All right. The C stands for catch yourself. We need to catch ourselves doing the thing in order for us to change it in the first place. We don't want to be like Larry. Now, Larry goes to work, and at lunchtime, he opens up his lunchbox and he says, "Another cheese sandwich. I'm sick of these cheese sandwiches." Well, the coworkers kind of look at him and think, okay. The next day, lunchtime, Larry opens his lunchbox and says, "A cheese sandwich again. I'm going to die from these cheese sandwiches." And the coworkers think, well, okay, we heard that yesterday. Well, the following day, Larry comes into the lunchroom, opens up his box, and says, "Another cheese sandwich? I hate cheese sandwiches. Oh God, why me and these cheese sandwiches?" Well, this one coworker finally had it and said, "Larry, tell your wife to fix you something other than a cheese sandwich." And Larry says, "I don't have a wife." Well, the coworker says, "Well, who is making your sandwich?" And Larry says, "I make my own sandwiches." Larry needed to catch himself. He needed to catch the fact that he was in charge of his own discomfort, that he was the one that was creating the thing in his life that was causing him to be miserable, the thing that he wanted to change. So we don't want to be like Larry. We want to catch ourselves. We want to catch ourselves doing what it is that we don't want to do and become aware of it and aware that it's us that's doing it, that it's us that's the cause in some way. See, that's the beauty, that's the beauty of the 12 steps in recovery is becoming aware. It's the inventory process, and that's why you do it with someone else too, is so they can help you become aware if you can't become aware on your own of how you might be causing something. So that's C. You got to catch yourself. Now the L in CLAP stands for let go. There's a line in the what's called the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the past is frequently our best asset, and it may be the only one we recognize at the time. Well, so how does that come about? It comes about because when we've been through something in our past that we're no longer doing it, that has to happen. We have to not be doing it anymore. But when we've been doing something in the past, we're no longer doing it, then it becomes an asset because we are so able to help another person who has that issue overcome themselves from doing it. And that's really the foundation of the 12 steps is one person helping another. So it's our biggest asset. The fact that we were doing this and now we're not, and we can help you not do it. Whatever it is, not just drinking or using, but all kinds of behavior. Um, all kinds of behavior. So the L is let go. We have to let go of the behavior before we're helpful. We have to shut one door before we can open a new door. But a lot of times we've got our hands stuck in that door that's about to close. We're clawing it open. We don't quite want to let it close. No, let it close. Let it close so another can open. And one way to do this is by, instead of saying never, we already said, okay, we don't want to do that. Never say never. Instead of doing that, we say things like, up until now, I have done this thing, but in the future, this is my behavior. You get it? Up until now. What this does is it puts an end date. It puts an end date on that behavior, like uh, like the date on milk in your fridge or something like that. It's the end date. It's like up until now this has happened, but from here on out, my life is going to look this way instead. Up until now, I've been critical in my relationship, but now I know that in order to really be loving, I need to be supportive and perhaps pause before I speak. So up until now, it's a beautiful way for us to let go of the past behavior and open the door for the new. So that's the L, let go. The A in CLAP stands for affirm. Of course we're gonna affirm. We're a new thought, right? And it's been proven also that when you want to let go of a new habit, if you replace it with something else, then it's easier to let go of the old. So affirm. We love affirmations, don't we? Up until now, I've been maybe spending too much money on clothes, let's say. And going forward, I am more mindful in my purchases. Up until now, I may have been speeding in my car too much. Oops. And now I'm going to be more mindful about the safety of my driving. You get it? Up until now, the past, and then affirm. Affirm what is the upcoming thing that you desire to have in your life. Affirmations. We know that they're powerful. So that's the A. So we've had C, count yourself, L, let go, A, affirm, and the P stands for persistence. We then have to be persistent in our new behavior, in the new thing that we wish to develop, the new habit, the new practice in our lives that we want to bring into our lives. So be persistent. Matt Kahn sent out in one of his emails, he says, though the rational mind, it would seem as if parting Through the rational mind, it would seem as if parting ways with limiting beliefs or addictive patterns, etc., would be nothing but a positive experience. And while deeply rewarding in the profound relief such as healing provides, because most people have spent more time in their human conditioning and self exposed limitations than any time spent in liberation and empowerment, the disappearance and dissolving of human conditioning actually triggers the grief of loss. Isn't that interesting? That when we're letting go of something, we can have a sense of loss that comes up because of that. It's like he likened it to letting go of an abusive ex who you know you want to get out of there. You know it's good for you to get out of there. You're relieved that you're not being abused anymore, but you still miss them. So this can happen with our habits as well, the things we want to let go of, that there's a missing that happens. So be persistent. Be gentle with ourselves about it. Of course, be gentle. We're doing the best we can, but be persistent in following the new thing. Dr. Brian King tells us that any lasting behavioral change from this point forward is going to take work and a lot of repetitions. Yeah, there's that W word, work. It takes work. And James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, says, at the end of the day, how long it takes to form a particular habit doesn't really matter that much. Whether it takes 50 days or 500 days, you have to put the work in either way. Either way. I think today we would rather just say clap and it's done, right? And some people may be fortunate enough so that that happens. I think to me it seems like we talked a while back about pain pushes until the vision pulls, and I think the stronger the vision is, perhaps the quicker that we can make those changes. The more that we feel something pulling us towards that. So that visioning helps. All right. Up until now, I've let things enter my mind from the outer world that I perhaps didn't want time on. And now I'm more conscious and more mindful of what I listen to. We have to catch ourselves. We have to let go of the old, affirm the new, and then be persistent. So let's all settle in now for our time of affirmative prayer. I am just so grateful in this moment. I'm grateful for life itself, and I'm grateful for the sunshine and for the daylight, and I'm grateful for this one presence and this one power, this one universal source, this eternal goodness, this eternal givingness, eternal loving kindness. That is what we might call God, or what I call the presence. I'm so grateful to know it is the totality of everything that is. There's nothing outside of it. And so in this one big presence, this big soup of presence, ocean of presence, I am within as of it. And in that awareness, I speak my word that all of us, being the presence, are all moving and evolving toward that higher way of expression for each of us. And that any thought of any habitual change that we might want comes directly from spirit, directly from that essence, directly from that presence, and it is ours to do. We know that as we rely more on that higher essence, the real you, capital R, capital Y, as Reverend Michael said, that real you, we let ourselves be drawn toward this new way of being, it becomes easier for us. The reward value for us is increased as we travel along this path that is meant for us to take. We know that the presence doesn't make things too hard for us, that we simply have to let go of old beliefs, old habits, old patterns. We gratefully do so, knowing that we have work ahead of us, not only work of the new habit, but work to do on this planet to raise the consciousness, to raise our consciousness, to help others, to be that beneficial presence. So we're grateful. We're grateful for opportunities to grow. We're grateful for the givingness and the goodness that is ours to share. We're grateful to be alive at this point in time. And we're grateful to be aware. So knowing all of this is simply our destiny and sure to come about, sure to be, we let it go. We release it into that law of goodness and grace. And so it is. Amen.